cottage. I'm wrapped up warm because it's very cold in this building. So thank you for joining. I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to be presenting the high-level summary of our recent report about AI tools and the census survey that we did. I'm just going to see if I can get rid of that rather annoying thing there with my name. There you go. So you see all of me live and in full effect. Okay, so let's get going. I don't have a live chat on this. It's just me. I don't have any producer support. So if you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me, Matthew@Articulate Marketing, and I'll also be sharing a link where you can book up a meeting with me and chat. I mean that very sincerely, but I can't do live chat at the same time as talking and thinking. This session is going to be very practical and grounded in real adoption data that we prepared for our report. And the goal here is really to try and give a sense of what other people are using and what's going to be popular and effective amongst marketing teams with AI in the coming year. Now, of course, there are 1,001 tools out there, and so we've been selective and used various criteria, which I'll cover up to highlight the ones that we're talking about today. But we're trying to be clear. We're not trying to indulge in buzzwords and hype, and we're not shilling for any particular thing. But we are coming from the context of being a HubSpot partner, and I'll talk about some of the tools that we're using, and I'll provide some editorial commentary on it. So most of this is coming from the report with objective data, and some of it's me editorializing. I'll try and be clear about which is which. So Articulate Marketing, we've been around more than 20 years. We've worked with 180 companies, including really big companies like Microsoft and Google, and lots of companies you've heard of, and lots of ambitious smaller companies. Lots of branding projects, more than 130, more than 2.5 million words, 120 odd websites, lots of HubSpot projects. There's the team, small but perfectly formed, and we do websites, content, AI automation, and branding. So that's where I'm coming from. On a personal level, I've always been fascinated by AI. This is a book that I bought when I was at university. The Policeman's Beard is Half Constructed, which was allegedly the first book written by a computer. And I think there's actually a sort of historical line that runs from Racter that wrote it to ChatGPT and beyond. There's some elements of technology they have in common. And I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords. I'm definitely an AI optimist, pragmatist. I position myself and the agency as people-first AI pragmatists, but I look forward to a future where sort of Ian M. Banks culture style, we're all ruled over by machines of loving grace, but I may not live to see it. So that's where I'm coming from. If you have any questions, you want to sort of engage with me and get opinions and get a little bit of a strategic discussion about your use of AI, book up a call with me, articulatemarketing.com/meet. Love to hear from you, love to talk. So if you want to get more information about the topic that we're covering, and I will get started very shortly, it's the next slide, you can click on this link when you get the PDF by email in the next day or so, and download the full report where we give the data and the analysis and really a lot more depth to it. So without any further ado, there are thousands of AI tools, and as marketing leaders, marketing decision makers, we have a duty to choose wisely, use wisely. William Gibson, the sci-fi author, said once that the future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed. And it's weird because it feels like the opposite is true with AI tools right now. They're evenly distributed. I mean, there's an AI in every app you use now, thanks to API integrations and other things, but the truth doesn't, the future doesn't seem to have fully arrived yet. We were promised a world-breaking, world-changing revolution of AI and a revolution in white-collar work and so on, and that may come. And we're moving in various directions towards that, but we haven't got this sort of AI utopia nirvana that we would like in the world of marketing. There's lots of gaps and discontinuities, despite the ubiquity of AI technology. And we think marketers are overwhelmed by tool choice and the tool use. And, do I use the AI that's in HubSpot or in Notion, or do I pay for ChatGPT just for 3 tools that we are already using? And then we've got Microsoft Copilot, all these tools are out there. So how do you make sense of it, this sort of Precambrian explosion of AI? We'll talk a little bit about how to manage that, but the fundamental rule is, I think, careful adoption and enthusiastic experimentation. Our view is that teams are splitting, and our experience with clients, into experimenters, maybe who are trying things out and taking perhaps a cautious but experimental in the technology-driven things, and strategic adopters who are starting with business or marketing challenges and searching for the right tools to solve those, and using the AI that's available to them as a specific tool to solve specific problems. And those are sort of equally valid, perhaps, but there's a sort of 2 different camps taking place. And then various tools out there are taking different approaches to the one AI tool to rule them all. For example, HubSpot wants to say, well, we're putting AI in the heart of your CRM, your website, and your content process, but you've got to come into HubSpot to use it. ChatGPT is making connections into HubSpot and other tools, so you bring your company knowledge, your CRM knowledge, into ChatGPT and interrogate it there. Notion wants you to put all your data and content into Notion and then use AI to run that. And interestingly, just released the agent functionality, so you can ask AI to do things to your data, which is, I think, very interesting. Our bet for marketing is that as 2026 progresses, the tools that integrate best with CRMs, with content management systems, and with analytics and with workflows are the ones that are going to be the most useful. Now, that integration might be via middleware like Make and Zapier. It might be through integration. It might be through bringing your data into an AI tool. I think point solutions are going to be increasingly challenging and difficult to use, and I think integration is going to be a pointer to success. Ask me in a year and I'll tell you if I'm wrong. So how we gathered our findings for this report, for this census, it was evidence-based. So we looked at a couple of reference review sites, which is good because they track to some extent real-world usage rather than demos and vendor hype. And also we looked at review velocity, which is also an indicator of uptake. So we're looking at these adoption signals. We looked closely at integration depth, because that's our hunch that it's going to be an indicator of success. And we looked at technology maturity indicators. So we're trying to understand what is potentially more reliable, more stable, more usable, more integrated, more widely adopted. Now, if you're in the experimenter camp, those sorts of things might be less attractive, and you might be looking for the latest and greatest new thing. So that's where this data came from. The report has more of it and more insights. What I'm going to be running through here is in a number of key areas of marketing, what tools are coming up tops in this analysis that we ran. So this is not every tool on the market, but the ones that we think are likely to be more widely adopted this year. So content copywriting, which I have made a living at for more than 20 years, is by far the largest and most mature AI use case. And I think we've all experienced, as recipients, as audiences of AI-generated content, and also perhaps using ChatGPT and other tools to create it. In our experience, in our data, Jasper and Writer seem to be coming out ahead, but tools like Cohere are also gaining traction for various reasons. And marketing teams, marketing leaders are making decisions about tools that give them more control over the brand voice and governance, and the source of the training for the AI data, as much as click here to generate thousands and thousands of words. And I think we're living now in a world with AI content where if anything's writable and you can produce an infinite amount of copy, you have infinite monkeys, what matters is the quality of that content and the alignment of that content with the brand. We also have a strong belief at Articulate that there is still a pressing need for a human-led, human-first, pragmatic approach to AI content. Now, this is a little bit of perhaps self-serving opinionating. We have had clients who've decided to just use AI for their copywriting, and fine. But if you want to be producing content that your competitors can't, if you want to be producing content that has expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness, I think there's a role for a human in the driving seat rather than putting AI in the driving seat. Now, that doesn't mean that AI doesn't have a really powerful role to play in as a sidekick, a co-pilot, a support, an editor, a tone of voice, and we, within our guidelines at Articulate, use AI increasingly in those sorts of roles for content. But the world doesn't need more AI slop. And so these sorts of tools, the tools that are likely to succeed in this area, are the ones that work with humans, allow this sort of guidance and tone of voice and control, rather than just quantity for its own sake. So that's the first area. Interestingly, design is coming into the mainstream as an AI format. Canva dominates because it helps remove a lot of production bottlenecks. We talk about designerless design at Articulate a lot, where designers' roles are evolving to become more elevated. They're developing design systems and branding strategies. They're working with clients and working with other members of the marketing team to really bring that design and vocabulary out and get it agreed, and then embed it into tools that other people, non-designers, can use to produce content, visual content that's on brand, without necessarily having to do a round trip to a designer every time. And I think this is a really interesting evolution, certainly within Articulate, and we see this happening more widely in the marketplace. Notion being one tool, Adobe Firefly being another one. Again, with Firefly, the brand control and legal requirements and compliance are really important. That's going to be a common theme through today's talk. So again, there's a role for a human element, but the human role, human engagement with this is changing, and in some ways it's democratizing some design functionality that was previously gate by experts who could do the work. That said, it is still quite challenging to persuade AI to produce some kinds of design work, and it's challenging to get it to do things that are differentiated. So this is, I think, the opportunity and the challenge for people using design AI. Video is, if you go down the sort of list of maturity within AI tools, copywriting, yes, well established, widely used. Design increasingly mainstream. Video is exploding, and I think we're seeing a lot of people now thinking about how to use AI to, again, take it out of the hands of the experts, the gatekeepers, the expert video editors and videographers that you used to have to work with. So, for example, I am doing this webinar now on Riverside. When I am editing this, I'm no video editor. It's not a skill I have, but I can do copy editing, and Riverside gives you this lovely text-based editor. And when you delete words or paragraphs, it just edits the video to kind of in line with the text. So you're editing the text and the video is edited. I think that's magic. And I know even 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, that would have been thought of as extraordinarily cutting edge or even impossible. So that for us is something. And then we also use Riverside to generate social clips, so it can produce summaries and extract little videos from the content. More widely, our census found that Descript, OpusClip, and Veed were growing in usage. Synthesia particularly for doing multilingual demos. So these are some tools that might be worth looking at. It's also true, I think, taking a slightly broader view of AI usage, that as AI written content has proliferated and there's more and more of it, being able to create content in other formats like video, like design, graphics, podcasts and webinars is going to be more and more important, so that there are tools that can again integrate into those production pipelines and workflows to take, for example, a webinar and turn it into a transcript and turn it into a summary and turn it into social media posts and turn it into blogs, and kind of do some or all of that process on an automated AI basis, and then with a bit of human oversight and editing. Also very, very powerful. So increasingly video is the start of that production pipeline, rather than a writer sitting in a darkened room with a cold flannel on his head and a glass of whiskey trying to battle the blank page, which is pretty much where I started 20 years ago. Well, not so much the whiskey and the cold flannel, but you know what I mean. So I think another very widely used tool, and you've all experienced this, is this meeting is being recorded, by AI note takers. And those are now incredibly widespread. We've had meetings where there have been more AI note takers in the meeting than there have been human beings. I suppose the ultimate stage is I'll have my AI call your AI and just tell me what the outcome was. But that's going beyond just making a transcript, and it's becoming useful for understanding sentiment or sales efficiency, or for the example of doing interviewing for writing or podcasting, extracting information that can be then turned into editorial content. In sales, these tools like Fireflies and Voma, Otter, which we've tried all of these. HubSpot uses Gong, so pretty much every conversation I have with HubSpot starts with Gong. They're very, very common. We like, for sales and client relationships, actually using HubSpot. It's got effectively a thing like Fireflies built into it, where it records and summarizes meetings, and it's pretty seamless if you've got HubSpot set up. For client meetings, we also record in Teams and extract a transcript, and we've been doing a lot of experimentation with Notion meeting recording, which actually, since we live in Notion and do a lot of our meeting notes there, that actually is the most immediately useful. So again, where you have the tools embedded in in some part of your workflow, rather than being a separate tool or a separate sign up registration process, that has higher value. I think if you're not using one of these note-taking tools, I think that's a mistake now. I think that you're missing out on something very valuable. Yeah. The penultimate area is for using AI for SEO. Now, this is not quite the same thing as how do I get found by AI? That's an interesting question. And I've done a webinar about that, and it's an area of ongoing investigation at Articulate and elsewhere, of course. But actually embedding AI into the SEO tools and how SEO teams are using it to be found online. And there are a number of tools that our research, our census, surfaced as being leaders. You probably are aware of SEMrush and Ahrefs. If somebody can tell me if it's Ahrefs or Ahrefs, I'd love to know. We use it, and in 5 years we still haven't figured out which it is. So Ahrefs, they're useful at identifying, how you're doing with AI visibility, so the AI citations and things like that. So that information is directionally interesting. Less so perhaps about telling you what you need to do to be found. There is a growing emergence of tools like ClearScope and perhaps Surfer SEO and other ones that are quite invaluable for helping writers write content that can be found by SEO and planning that. And we're seeing a shift in in SEO thinking, AIO thinking towards entity first and semantic optimization. What do I mean by that? Well, entity first meaning sort of embedding into content things like FAQs and so on, using schema code that can then be read by AIs. So you're talking about objects like a product on an e-commerce site or a service with a series of FAQs. And you'll notice if you look at Articulate site that all of our pages now have FAQs, for all of our service pages for that reason, and others. And semantic optimization is really about making sure that the content is understandable and understood and sort of talking about the right sorts of issues and various other things. So I would be a little wary of anybody coming along and saying, we can solve for being found by large language models and AIs. I think there isn't a single magic bullet for that. There may become one. I suspect, as with SEO before and most aspects of marketing, it is a combination of attention, effort, quality, and assisted by technology rather than solved by ticking a box and buying a product. But I think the tools that people can use for SEO are being enhanced by AI in useful and meaningful ways. And I think if you're looking at one of these tools, you're going to be getting something that's going to be helpful and useful. Okay. One of our clients, Searchpilot, does SEO experiments, and that kind of empirical scientific method, if you have the traffic for it, is incredibly helpful. And I think it's probably the only reliable, consistently reliable method of guaranteeing, that what you did produced the result you wanted. Everything else is a little bit, you try something and you hope it works and you see if it does. Anyway, that's an opinion, but do go look at Searchpilot, especially if you're in the world of e-commerce. Okay. I'm going to come on to some kind of general comments, but the last area of functionality that we're really interested in with AI is personalization. And the promise here is personalization at scale. The risk is better spamming, right? I mean, and we've all had those emails and LinkedIn messages. I noticed that you are the CEO of Articulate Marketing. Well, fine, yes, okay. You got an AI to go and look at my LinkedIn profile. But there are tools that help personalize website experiences and other kinds of engagement experiences using AI, using what they know about you, what AI can find out about you, and around A/B testing and around content personalization. Our research found that Mutiny is winning because it lets marketers ship experiments without waiting for developers. And enterprise teams are typically using Optimizely or Dynamic Adobe Target for large-scale experimentation. But it's also personalization depends on the strategy, what you want to personalize and how, and also the data that you have, and not just, again, click a button, AI solves everything. Taking a HubSpot perspective on it, it feels like there's an amazing opportunity for them to use AI personalization, and they're certainly talking about it. Particularly with websites, there's smart content, there's Clearbit data, there's intent data, and there's CRM content, CRM data, and all of these pieces are sort of in there. Would love to see that jigsaw sort of fit together a little bit better, and I think if HubSpot do take advantage of the combination of tools and data that they have, and follow through on their commitment, that could be incredibly powerful for websites hosted on HubSpot. At the moment, you have to work a little bit harder than we would like to implement some of the AI-powered personalization. Anyway, interesting stuff. Happy to talk about that at length if you want to give me a call or send me an email. So what do we use? Among many, and there are probably other tools that we have in our Orbit that maybe, I mean, like Microsoft Copilot that everyone in the company has access to, and I'm sure nobody in the company actually uses. We're paying for ChatGPT, and what you pay for is often a good indicator of what's being used. So we give that to team members, and what's nice is if you pay for it, you get the latest tools and technologies and the integrations with HubSpot and other things, but they don't train on your data. We've built various custom GPTs within that, such as Twain and Elizabeth, that help us with our brand voice, help us with subject matter expert in particular market sectors that we operate in. So we're using that and training our AIs to help us. Riverside I've already talked about, Teams I've already talked about. Obviously HubSpot partners, we are interested in and explore a lot of the AI functionality. Some of the things are very promising, but not quite there yet. I mean, Content Remix, we're not wild about. But Meeting Notes we really like, Smart Properties we really like, and we're doing a lot of experimentation with Customer Agent, which is an AI-powered chatbot. And I think that's very exciting for the right kind of client. It could save a lot of time and money. All our writers use Grammarly, and that's helpful. Notion, we live in Notion, and increasingly it's helpful for search. Although actually I find I use personally ChatGPT connected to Slack, to Notion, and to on my email, and I'll ask it questions like, did we do this for this client back in 2024? And it kind of goes away and looks at all that and kind of comes back. So it's like having your own AI powered Google search across all of your data in the company. It's absolutely fabulous. A little bit of Make, a little bit of Zapier for middleware integration and things like that. That's kind of useful for gluing things together. My suspicion is, and this is a hunch of mine, not part of the report, that a lot of that sort of glomming things together with middleware and putting AI in that mix will become less relevant, and you'll have to build less of that yourself. It'll be sort of embedded in the other tools that you use or in the workflows that you use. And also, as we're already beginning to see with Notion, you will be programming the agents using a sort of AI interface. So you actually ask it in natural language what you want it to do, and then it will go do it, or it will come back and ask you questions about how it should do it, or clarifying things. And so some of the skills that go with constructing middleware will become AI'd, I suspect, more in the course of this year. And on the design side, of course, we use Figma with some Nano Banana. If you look at our website now, we used to use another tool. It was on an earlier slide. Sorry, it just slipped my mind. For graphics, about 3-4 years ago, we had a very sort of sci-fi look on our website, and we were building that with AI. Then we went to photography, and now we're coming back to ever so slightly AI modified grandmaster artwork, grandmaster paintings, and that style, which I think is quite fun. It's it's a play on the word art in articulate, if you didn't know. So we're playing around with quite a lot of that. I've got 3 more slides thinking about the editorial, taking a broader view on this. What's going to drive adoption in the coming year? I'll try and get through this in a couple of minutes. I realize I promised this would be 30 minutes. It'll probably end up being about 33, 34 minutes. Sorry, slightly overrunning, getting carried away with myself. As I've said throughout, integration tools, particularly for marketers with CRM and with the website, going to win out in the end. Compliance and governance are going to become increasingly important. I think it's what is required in large companies already around those areas will become trickled down into suppliers and vendors and other people, and they'll become more aware of it. It's we're one lawsuit away from that becoming a really critical burning issue. I suspect that there will be a growing trend to all-in-one or one platform to rule them all, and you might, instead of building a constellation of 5 or 10 platforms glued together and doing different things, end up with 2 or 3 that kind of cover the ground. HubSpot probably and others would like you to just use one. I don't think we're going to end up anyone using just one AI tool, but it'll be a consolidation, I think. And I think this content pipeline thing will become increasingly important. Building these format multi-touch pipelines, potentially with personalization. So this is where I think I would put my money. Bolt-on AI, sort of putting it in a bit of AI engineering for your share price, not very helpful. Anything that doesn't have compliance and privacy built in, anything that requires, anything more than routine IT support, and if it's not clear where the data is coming from to train the AI or how they're using your data, I think that's going to be a big issue. So last slide. Thank you for sticking with me. What should marketers do next? Well, go download the report, book a meeting with me. Let's have a chat. Okay, let's set that to one side. I think there's a value in deduplicating your AI stack, looking at what you've got and what you don't need. Certainly if you're paying for multiple tools, I think you should plan on the tools you have now being different from the tools you have in 12 months time or 24 months time. So long-term commitments and expensive bets have a higher standard of proof, I think, than with things like CRMs. I believe in experimenting boldly, but running small pilots and testing things and strategically implementing to solve real business needs. So explore the art of the possible, but then strategically take advantage of AI to solve actual real world problems. Here's the link to the report. When you're watching this afterwards, this button will be activated. Do get in touch with me, matthew@articulatemarketing.com or articulatemarketing.com/meet. That's my meeting link. That brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you for sticking around, the few of you who are just leaving. That's all for today. Thank you very much. Bye now.